Welcome to the Take the North podcast. I'm David Haugh on the Mully and Haugh show on 670 The Score. Dan Wiederer is from the Chicago Tribune covering the Bears. And we are in the midst of OTAs beginning at Haugh. Dan, this week was the first OTA. Earlier in the week, it becomes open to the media later in the week. And it is the first time that not Justin Fields, the first time that Caleb Williams gets to get in a huddle with his offensive veterans. He aced rookie minicamp, but now he gets everybody in there. And it's obviously something that's taken on a life of its own in the NFL over in the last several years or so, but still a significant step for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I mean, look, these are spring practices that are designed to push your team in the right direction. And you got to remember that the last time we saw this full football team on a field was in Green Bay in early January. And we know how much of a disappointment that season finale loss was at Lambeau Field. And now you have made a lot of strides in the offseason with roster additions, with changes you've made to your coaching staff, with things that you've designed to take your program to the next level. Now is a chance to start showing it, and I really was thinking about it, David, this week. We'll get out there on Thursday for the first time to look at some of the on-field work. We'll get a chance to talk to some players as well as Matt Eberflus. And I think Eric Washington is the coordinator this week that will speak to us. There's a lot to take inventory on with this team on both sides of the ball, not only the new faces, but guys that are returning. And when you go kind of position by position through the starting 11 on both sides of the football, you say, yeah, there's questions here for this football team. There's a lot to be excited about, but there are a lot of questions to be answered. And I think you'd probably agree that it's going to be fun to like step by step go through this and try to figure out what our biggest lingering questions are and which ones get answered right away.
It will. We'll go through those in a moment. We're also going to talk about Justin Fields, his arrival in Pittsburgh. He talked to the media that cover the Steelers, and obviously the rookie orientation with Tom Brady and Jay-Z. We got to get to all of that. But yeah, back to OTAs. When you talk about the offseason questions that are, answered in our minds because they haven't been on the field yet, I think, yeah, you think that there's something to keep an eye on. These are more than just practices on air or quarterback receiver passing camps. Besides Caleb Williams, aside from the quarterback, what are the other aspects, or what's the next most important thing you're looking for when you go out there on Thursday?
Well, look, as the spring progresses and as we get toward mini camp and then toward training camp, I really want to get evidence that this defense is what we think it's going to be. Now, we all know that we would have liked to seen more up front, maybe another pass rusher, maybe somebody still in the mix before they get to their first preseason game in Canton. What does it look like on the interior of the defensive line as well? And you just want to feel sort of that cohesion and that swagger that unit should have coming off the way they finished last year. And you just want it, you want to feel it, and that is a benefit of being in person for these practices is sometimes you can feel the vibe. Now, sometimes the vibes you feel are false. And we've had that before with defenses in Chicago where you feel really good about it. And then you see that the results during the regular season don't match up. But with all the guys they've got returning, with all of the things that they did down the stretch of last season, there's every reason to believe that this defense can be the engine of this football team until Caleb Williams is ready to take that role over. And that's a great luxury for a rookie quarterback to have.
To your knowledge, has anybody not expected to be there? Has there been anybody who maybe a contract issue or some sort of other protest? We know in Minnesota, for instance, Justin Jefferson is away without leave. That's going to be a problem that they're going to continue to monitor up there. I wonder, like, for instance, Nate Davis, do you expect him to be there? Because I think these are the kinds of things that are important for guys who had issues last year with dependability and guys who are maybe new to the system, like a Ryan Bates.
Yeah. Well, Nate Davis and Jalen Johnson, you remember, were the guys that were under the spotlight a year ago when their absences were noted for very different reasons. And so I don't have any intel at this point that tells me a player or two or three or four may not be in attendance there. We'll get our eyes on it on Thursday and check in from there. Jalen Johnson has kind of historically tried to protect his offseason free time, spend time with his daughter, stay out west in California. Now that he's gotten paid, it'll be interesting to see if he chooses that path again or whether he feels like he's got a responsibility as one of the highest paid players on this defense, one of the established veteran leaders on this football team to be there and to help set this tone. Attendance is it's a minor thing during May, but it's still a thing in my opinion. And then you just have to figure out how each coach and each player is going to handle anybody that's not there for whatever reasons they choose not to be there.
I would imagine that the receiving core and obviously Caleb Williams, they can get the most done um, at a camp like this. Also, running backs and timing with the backfield. When you have a new quarterback, I think there's everything about the offense is going to be in play and worth addressing or seeing, just kind of how it feels and how it fits. Also, there's a little thing, but like the coaching styles of a Shane Waldron, Kerry Joseph, guys who have not been out at Hallis Hall before, how they interact with these players, what is their style, how aggressive are they, how loud, how quiet. These are the kinds of things you get to work out now in May and June, so that when you get to training camp, there are no surprises.
Yeah, and full disclosure, offensively in the month of May, it's pretty dull, especially when you're putting in a new offense and it's a lot of installation and it's a lot of just step by step assembly that's required at this stage. And so, look, like there's going to be 2 to 3 Caleb Williams highlights per practice that we see most likely, and those are going to light Twitter ablaze. But for the most part, this is a very page 1 through 4 of the Lego manual that you're putting together here if you're Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus in the offense. And so there's not a lot to draw conclusions from just yet. We'll get there. We'll get there pretty quick. I was booking some of my travel already for, the Hall of Fame game. It's not that far off from right now. And so football is here, and this is just sort of that appetizer that tells you it's coming quickly, and we're going to learn a lot more about this football team with each step of the process.
Well, they've already taken pictures, so they're posing for photos in the Fanatics jerseys, right? That was the rookie orientation earlier this week that Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze attended with. Was it all first-round draft picks, or how did they work out?
No, it's selective, but it's out in LA, and usually there's trading card photos and things that go on at the rookie orientation out there. And then Caleb Williams, as I think you alluded to earlier, got an opportunity to be part of a very exclusive luncheon. The other people from his rookie class that were there were Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix, Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, and they got to have lunch with Fanatics CEO and founder Michael Rubin. That's a nice name. And then 2 much bigger headliners, Jay-Z and Tom Brady. And so you get to sit around a table, break bread with the greatest player to ever play your position. You better have your antenna up. You better have your radar up. You better be ready to listen to some of the wisdom and the insight that Tom Brady is willing to provide. Caleb Williams has been very forthright throughout the pre-draft process that he loved watching Aaron Rodgers during his time growing up and playing the position. And obviously he admires the heck out of Tom Brady. And so I have to imagine that was a pretty compelling experience for him to sit across the table and listen to Tom Brady, offer some of his insight for getting his career started on the right foot.
He looked transfixed in that photo. He was mesmerized. He was staring at him like a philosopher, trying to figure out what exactly he being the wisdom imparted upon him. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but Brady was on brand. He was a guy that talked about treating every preseason game like the Super Bowl. You probably have all heard the quotes in the comments, and it can't hurt to hear that kind of those ideas reinforced by somebody who has gone through it, even if it is, maybe they rolled their eyes and maybe some of those guys feel like it's an older guy sending a message that sounds more like a coach or a father figure, but that's kind of who he is at this stage of their respective careers.
As a coach and a father, I will tell you that I wrote down some of that wisdom to take to my baseball team, because I thought that sentiment that you just mentioned was poignant to me, that this idea that Tom Brady essentially said, for 20 years I was in New England and we were winning all the time. And part of the reason is because I took every practice and every preseason game and every regular season game as if it was the Super Bowl. And then when we got to those Super Bowls, it was just another day for me. And so I like that is a mindset, and it may seem cliche and it may seem trite to some, but it is an approach and a mindset that becomes part of who you are. And it can drive success and it can drive results. And I think Caleb Williams is kind of a process-driven dude himself. And so I think to have that reinforced by, the greatest player to ever play your position is something that probably makes you sit up a little straighter, makes you go to your first OTA practice with a little more purpose, with a little more oomph, because it's so fresh in your mind. I loved that message from Tom Brady. I'm sure you do as well, just knowing that it's easy to kind of blow off some of these menial steps in the process, but to be great, and not just be great. Like Caleb Williams has expressed his intent to be the greatest Bears quarterback to ever play and to be on the Mount Rushmore of greatest quarterbacks to ever play the sport. You better understand how much of a grind and how detail oriented you have to be every minute of every day to make those things happen.
And when you see guys who are busts, or when you see guys who fall short of their potential, often it's rooted in the reason that they didn't do what Brady kind of described. It is general advice. It is the kind of thing you hear whether you're, in a seventh grade locker room or if you're sitting next to Jay-Z and Tom Brady at a luncheon arranged by a billionaire. I think that it's a cliched advice for a reason, because it's often repeated and often effective. So you'll know the guys that weren't listening, I think. You'll know the guys that maybe it didn't resonate with. And a guy like Caleb Williams, who already has made an impression as somebody who wants to listen before he starts talking, as somebody who wants to ease his way into the leadership role, that is a picture you'll remember if he starts doing things the way that we expect, and that is to take over. Gradually, you'll see the evidence on the field, but until you do, you'll be impressed by what he has to say off of it.
It's a great point. I mean, Caleb's own words, you have to follow before you can lead, right? So why not follow somebody that offers that up there? This is an immersion position. It's something that you have to put your scuba tank on and go deep underwater to get to the things that you want to get to. You can't just sit up top and look and, oh, that's nice. You have to immerse yourself in every single part of playing this position. And there's a lot of demands and a lot of responsibilities, and the payoffs are huge for those who conquer it and get to that elite level. The one other part of this that I wanted to ask you about was there is a trace of irony to all of this, because one of Tom Brady's messages was, I watch young players today and they're all about their brand and they're all about content on social media, and they're trying to create an impression of who they are without actually living that life. It's ironic to me because, of course, that's immediately clipped and posted to social media, Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else. And so there is this strange balance, I think, for today's athlete of understanding, all that stuff is accessible to you, but you can't just be posting workout photos. You can't just be, creating this impression of who you are. You have to live the lifestyle. You have to be that way. I also think that we're in this world where every single thing that these people do, these young athletes, it's content now. And so you have to figure out how to live in that world where everything you do and say is content without becoming this manufactured for content caricature of who you're supposed to be, if that makes sense.
Brady, Mr. TB12, has to be careful that he doesn't come off as hypocritical, because he was able to pull it off. But I do think that he would not be the guy that you would think would be caution. He should be cautioning about the perils of getting too much into a brand or being stretched too thin. But he did it successfully, so I think it was a little bit ironic, if you will, that he would be the guy warning. He also didn't. I mean, social media near the end of his career was a big deal, but at the beginning, he never had to put up with it early on the way these guys have.
It wasn't there. When Tom Brady broke into the league, there was no such thing as Twitter. There was no such thing as Facebook, and so that came later. These athletes now that are entering the league, they were in fourth grade the first time they got on, an account in a lot of cases, and so it's been part of their existence. It's fascinating. I mean, we're two old fogies here on a podcast that can't fully relate to having that as part of our life for as long as they've had it, but you just have to figure out a way to balance it. And I bring that up just because it's clear that Caleb is still very active in his social media world, right? And so that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to find a way to strike the proper balance and understand that everything you do is going to attract the microscope.
Now, remind me, what was Jay-Z doing there?
Just hanging out with TV,
because it was a cool place to be. Yeah.
He's got good advice too. I mean, he's accomplished a few things in his life.
Oh, he's definitely accomplished a few things in business. I guess that is what the other aspect was. Maybe Jay-Z was the draw and Tom Brady was there to offer the advice.
And I Jay-Z also said something that I thought was notable, where he said, look, like the talent is going to get you in the door, and then it's the discipline and the dedication that's going
Yeah.
to make you elite, and so that's another thing to understand. And look, again, like this is kind of that uh, book off the Barnes and Noble shelf that's motivational speaking for young NFL players or whatever, and there's some pages in there that they can clip out and put on their mirrors and their bulletin boards and live the words that have been spoken to them. Ultimately, you've got to go out and produce when the production is needed, right?
And yes, I do know, audience, that Jay-Z was in the sports agency business. He was the founder of Rock Nation Sports, so he definitely belongs there. It just was
Little known nugget for our audience that you used to make Rich Camel and I play Big Pimpin' whenever you walked into a press box. Our first year on the beat,
well,
that was sort of your walk-in music.
I was trying to limit that information. I was trying to keep a lid on that.
Statute of limitations is expired on that.
It is a crossover because sports and music and record producing and branding and all those things. I spoke to a middle school today, and obviously at the end you have all these kind of questions about who you talk to, and one of them was, "Have you ever interviewed Drake?" Like, no. Why would I ever interview Drake? I mean, but again, that's the old man yells at cloud thing. I wouldn't think I'd ever want to interview Drake about anything sports related. And yet somebody be like, "Oh yeah, that'd be great. Let's get his take on the Raptors or whatever, or the Maple Leafs or whoever Drake is following the flavor of the month." I don't know. I have no interest in interviewing Drake, but it does speak to the whole idea that there's a lot of crossover value here.
For whatever it's worth, I asked one, maybe two questions to Drake May at the combine, so I've sort of interviewed Drake.
Drake May, was he the young man dressed as Tom Brady's son in that Kohl's ad that they were posing for?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know who you're talking about.
The heir apparent to Tom Brady up in New
England. Of course. Yeah. So that's why they were dressed alike. That was very strange, that picture. All right. So that was at the orientation with Michael Rubin. By the way, nice to have money to hang out with those guys. How much do you think it costs to get those two guys there?
I don't know, but Fanatics feels like they're taking over the world. I mean, everywhere I look, they've got the jersey sales flying off the charts.
But didn't they ruin Major League Baseball? Aren't there jerseys? Their jerseys in Major League Baseball. Are they the ones behind the ones that don't fit?
You have to do some more research on it. Maybe
Okay.
I know they've taken over part of the sports gambling world now. I mean, so there's a water full of money that's apparently flowing in enough to host that luncheon. I'm curious. I would have liked to have seen the itemized receipt from that luncheon, wouldn't you?
Yes.
See what it cost and what they ate.
Where exactly were they?
Somewhere in LA.
The cool West Hollywood club that they took Caleb Williams to?
Great question. If it was at the Bird Streets Club, that would be certainly a nice little touch, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure where they ate that. Maybe we can get more information.
Okay, so it was the uniforms that don't fit anyone in Major League Baseball with all those crazy small lettering, designed by Nike, produced by Fanatics. So Michael Rubin is hosting Tom Brady, Jay-Z in the 2024 NFL rookie class. He's got a little controversy on his hands in Major League Baseball, so that could be the next stop. Okay, moving on. Justin Fields met the Pittsburgh media on Tuesday, and it was his first time that he really spoke, unless I missed something, Dan. He hasn't spoken about the Bears' experience or getting traded before today, did he?
No, I think this was it, which is wild because it's more than 2 months since he became a Pittsburgh Steeler. And it had kind of, to be honest with you, it was in my purview in March and maybe at the start of April, but it kind of faded to far off the radar. And so, when you saw him speaking at his locker stall in Pittsburgh, it was kind of like, oh, yeah. Justin was part of this organization not that long ago. Justin's got a new start in Pittsburgh. Justin's got another chapter of his career to write, even as the story in Chicago pivots in an entirely new direction. So fascinating to kind of take inventory on that from afar.
You wish him well. You've got a lot of respect for him, but it is yesterday's news. That said, this is what Justin Fields had to say about the ups and downs of his Chicago Bears tenure.
A lot of ups and downs, but all in all, I appreciate every relationship that I built. All my teammates, they know that. Nothing but love for the city, for the fans, and for my old teammates and coaches.
Did you feel they did everything they should have done to facilitate your growth?
I'm not really gonna harp on the past. It is what it is. It's in the past now. I'm here now. So like I said, I'm grateful to be here and grateful to be a part of the team.
Justin Fields taking the high road, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, out of town into Steeler country. Good for him. I don't think there's anything to gain from looking back and lamenting what he dealt with, even though everybody can agree that there was shared blame and responsibility. How you want to divvy it up, we're not going to relitigate that, but I thought he handled that well.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Justin has always really been pretty forward-looking, and I've appreciated that about him. I also just don't know, even if he had grievances to air, what purpose it would serve by him doing it in that forum. So, look, like the page has been turned. Justin Fields is in Pittsburgh. What happened here in Chicago has been well documented. We know that there were errors in the way that they brought his career around. I thought, and he's got opportunity now, right? Like, and that is all you can ask for when you are forced to go to a new direction, is to have opportunity. Is he going to start week 1 for the Steelers? Probably not. Is he going to have a chance at sometime this year to play? Probably. And then you just have to figure out a way to make the best of that in a way that makes you wanted in 2025, right? By some team, whether it's the Steelers or elsewhere. As you mentioned, his rookie contract comes to an end here at the end of this season. And, Justin has a lot to take care of in Pittsburgh that I don't think that there's much use in spending any mental energy or verbal energy on revisiting what happened here in Chicago over 3 seasons.
Russell Wilson also on a 1-year, $1.2 million contract. Justin Fields on a 1-year deal at the end of his rookie contract. Both guys really have a lot to play for this year. This is what Justin Fields had to say about the opportunity in front of him.
To be honest, I'm taking it day by day. I'm definitely, competing. I think, Russ knows that. We're competing against each other every day. Him being out there for me, that helps me getting better. Us pushing each other. So, I definitely don't have the mindset of me just sitting all year. So, I'm coming in every day, giving it all I got, and pushing him to be his best, and he's pushing me to be my best each and every day. So, appreciate that.
So last time he was a backup was as a rookie behind Andy Dalton. Before that, you have to go back to Georgia. Then he transferred. Not a comfortable role for Justin Fields, but sounds like he's accepted his fate and ready to take it one day at a time.
Figure out how to master it. I mean, that's what the NFL is. You get a role, you figure out how to master it. When your role changes, figure out how to master that. Again, like, Justin's going to have an opportunity to take his career where he wants to take it. It's not over just because he left Chicago. It's not over just because things didn't work out here and he may not have had the developmental launching pad or the supporting cast that would have been ideal to foster his growth. Figure out where you go from here and try to make the best of what it for now is a 1-season stop in Pittsburgh and see where it takes you.
He's committed to making the most of it, to the point where he says he still has potential and he believes in what he's going to be as an NFL quarterback.
No, I am. I'm not the same quarterback as I was last year, and I'm not the same quarterback as I even was yesterday. So I'm, going to continue to get better each and every day, and especially with the help of Tom, our quarterback coach. He's smart, and Matt Baker, he's super smart too. And Russell, like I said, just learning from all 3 of those guys, and having them by my side, and having them getting me better each and every day, pushing me to be my best. I think I have a lot more room to grow. So I'm nowhere near my ceiling.
Thank you for that audio from 93.7 The Fan, I believe, in Pittsburgh, an Odyssey station. They helped us out with that at Justin Fields' locker in the Steelers' locker room. Dan, I know he sounds like he's saying all the right things, and he certainly does have a future, I think, as a quarterback in the NFL. Probably one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league, really. But do you think that, and we weren't there, so we don't know, but do you think that he's open to returning kicks and or being used as a slash type role? Because that's coming if he's not effective as a quarterback or in a backup role.
I certainly would not be open to it yet. Look, like, again, you're going into a contract year with the intention of being a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't know that I would sign up for a gadget role. Just in order to try to help out. Now, look, like, whatever the team needs, right? That's going to be the talking point that's there. But man, I wouldn't be putting my future in major jeopardy to return kicks if I have aspirations of being a starting quarterback for a long time to come. So it's going to be fascinating to see where that goes.
Especially with the 1-year contract.
Right.
That's the thing. You don't have a lot of security beyond this year. Also, thank you to Mike DeFabo, who covers the Steelers for The Athletic, for also that audio. Dan, I just don't know that Russell Wilson, you can never account for injury, but it would surprise me. He's playing for the same kind of contractual reality. I would expect him to be for whatever he has left. I think he's going to probably get the most out of his potential for whatever he has left.
Yeah, let's see. It's been a bumpy few years for Russell Wilson, and so there's a lot of questions on what is left in that tank and how good he can still be at this late stage of his career. He'll go there. I thought one of the things that Justin said in that latter clip was he's not the same quarterback as he was last year. That's fair. Like, Justin Fields was still kind of developing, right? And on the upswing when his career here in Chicago finished. It just had not reached anywhere the slope that it needed to go to get the Bears where they needed to go, or to get himself where he needed to go. But he still has a chance to be better as a quarterback than he's been. He still has a chance to get a lot more out of himself, and he sounds driven to do that. As you and I have always said, best of luck to him. No hard feelings, no ill will. I hope he does well and goes where he needs to go. The decisions the Bears made were sensible, logical, practical, and here they are now in their own new chapter, getting ready to send Caleb Williams out to OTA practices.
Back with the Bears, NFL.com had an interesting story. They ranked the top 10 players who were traded in the offseason based on what impact they would have on their new teams. Keenan Allen came in second to Stephon Diggs down in Houston. We'll see those two guys head-to-head in week 2. That will be a fun matchup. Do you think that Keenan Allen deserved to be ranked second? I don't know how 2 wide receivers were ranked ahead of pass rushers like Burns and Reddick, and then it's a little surprising to me.
10,000 career receiving yards is a pretty good number. And look, Keenan Allen, again, was having a phenomenal year in 2023 before he missed the last 4 games with an injury. I don't have much issue at all with him being that far up there. The Bears are going to have to find a role for him. Caleb Williams is going to have to find him on 3rd down, because everybody you talk to that's followed Keenan Allen's time with the Chargers says, look, like, this is the ultimate security blanket. This guy will bail you out of a lot of jams if you rely on him and understand how good he is at getting open in money situations. And so let's see where he goes, because certainly the Bears made an investment there with a vision of him being that kind of guy for their rookie quarterback.
He's probably more crafty too, where he's going to be working out of the slot, we think. I guess we'll start to see a little bit of that in their formations, maybe during OTAs. Probably not too big of a glimpse, but Keenan Allen with the other 2 receivers, DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, seems to be the most likely guy to fit into that slot role. So he's going to be a little bit tougher. He's going to be a little bit more crafty and be able to find his holes. But that would seem to be the best fit for him. We'll see.
And again, like, even when you mention those names in rapid succession, you go, man, like, this is a chess game that the Bears are now able to play when they haven't been able to do that in the past. You mix Cole Kmet into that mix and you go, okay, it's 3rd down. I'm an opposing defense. Where am I devoting my coverage to? And if I devote it in one direction more than another, how much am I potentially going to pay on the other side if Shane Waldron does what he's supposed to do and designs a play that puts a defense in peril and strains them to the point where now you've got options, and you've got really, really good options, proven options across the board for guys that can make a play for you when you need one made.
Last thing I want to mention, Dan, is that the NFL owners are meeting in Nashville this week. One of the things under discussion would be approving private equity groups to get involved with team ownership, minority ownership situations, possibly 30%, maybe as little as 10, between 10 and 30%. What that would allow teams like the Bears to do would be to sell part of their team to a private equity group that would get involved for profit. And it would also allow the Bears to liquefy some of what their investment is in the team, to use that money to, help fund a stadium. So this is a step in the right direction to eliminate public subsidies, or maybe the big ask. Remember, as we sit here today, it's May 21st. May 24th is when the Illinois General Assembly adjourns, and there has been no movement. There's been no real scuttlebutt. There's been really not much since Governor Pritzker said that the Bears Stadium project looked like a non-starter. So we'll see where that goes. But this owners meeting and how they vote on this could be very interesting to follow.
Yeah, that's notable to say the least. We're also fast approaching the 3-year anniversary of the Bears initially entering into the purchase agreement on the property in Arlington Heights. That's a long time ago. It went fast. There is still no significant development that has been done, both figuratively and literally, on getting this stadium moving in the right direction. And so, man, like, you would really, really hope that these things advance to provide clarity before we get through the regular season of 2024. If not, then you got to start asking questions about who's chasing their tail and what the ultimate conclusion of this whole saga will be. But yeah, for now it's fluid, it's evolving, and we'll keep our eyes and ears on it the whole way through.
We'll be here to ask those questions, and we'll be here later this week after the first open OTA when the coaches talk, and then it'll be Thursday and Friday. We'll be there for you. And anything else, Dan, before we get out of here?
One quick thing. You said the owners met in Nashville. Once upon a time, you and I met in Nashville along with Rich Campbell and Tyler Dunn at a barbecue joint. I bring that up because Tyler Dunn was a guest on this program last week. He was a guest on Football Night in Chicago with you a couple days later. I was just curious what your lasting impressions were of the deep dive he did on Caleb Williams, the Bears quarterback saga, and all that went into what brought us to now, right, in modern day Bears quarterback history.
Tyler also was a guest on the Mully and Haugh show, so he did a lot of talking in the Chicago market. I dubbed him an honorary member of the Chicago media last week. Look, I thought what he's revealed about Caleb Williams was very interesting and well done. Obviously, he got into a deeper explanation, more broad explanation of who he is and what he's going to be. I told him this, the stuff about Justin Fields not being a great teammate or being portrayed that way or not getting along with Nick Foles, the stuff about Trubisky, very interesting. I don't have any reason to question his sources. I also don't think that it's relevant. I don't think it matters because I'm not going to hold the sins of the Bears during the Trubisky and Justin Fields era against Caleb Williams when everything has changed essentially. There aren't the same dynamics in place. There aren't the same kind of parameters. I do think it's a new day and a new era, and I don't always like using, even though it's reflex, and even though there's institutional skepticism that's earned and appropriate in Chicago, I don't think that Mitch Trubisky's experience has anything to do with what Caleb Williams will be. And to a lesser degree, but still, I think I'm firm on it. What happened to Justin Fields doesn't mean it's going to happen to Caleb Williams. This is a new era and a new guy, and I don't think we've ever seen the likes of him before in Chicago. And that's what. And I think Ty agreed with that too. But it just was fascinating stuff to look back on.
Yeah, I mean, I think through a wide lens, you always have to be aware of the things that contribute to organizational dysfunction and try to keep them to a minimum, particularly when you're trying to get a young quarterback off the ground. My second conclusion is that ultimately the young quarterback has to be what you think he is going to be. And we can talk in retrospect about failed quarterbacks all the time about, oh, this didn't go right, this didn't go right. If you make plays when there are plays to be made, we never have these discussions. We talk about playoff bursts and we talk about how many times you're going to give yourself a bite at the apple and a swing at winning the biggest prizes. And so ultimately Caleb Williams is going to have the football in his hands in critical moments in games that mean a lot. And the separating factor is, can you rise up and meet those moments no matter how much has been stacked against you? I think over time in the bodies of work of Trubisky and Fields, you saw there's limitations in who they are as quarterbacks at this level. And that ultimately led them out the door and leads us to revisit it with the black light to see where all the stains were. But ultimately, if you succeed in those moments, those discussions never happen. And we're just on to, okay, now we're the Buffalo Bills, where we're in the playoffs every year. Now we're the Green Bay Packers, where we can flip the page seamlessly from quarterback to quarterback to quarterback. That falls in the hands of the quarterback. It's why it's the most scrutinized position. It's why it's the most heavily rewarded when things go well.
Well put, and a worthy goal. And that will wrap it up for this Take the North podcast. Thank you to Adam Sadzinski, our producer, Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune. I'm David Haugh on the Mully and Haugh Show. You can get us on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch us on 670 Scores YouTube page. Thank you for listening and watching Take the North.
Great talk. See you out there.